You on?
I'm on?
Yep.
Hey everybody, welcome to the paint stream. It's me, John, and I'm going to be working on a collection of Age of Sigmar models, starting with this fancy dwarf fire slayer. I am currently blocking in the gold on this model. There's quite a bit of gold to have. Now, one of the things to do while you're blocking in gold, and one of the things that I really like to do, is actually painting an undercoat of silver on it. So you'll notice a lot of the areas that I'm coming in with the gold, I've painted silver before. Hey Ross! And the reason why I do this is to make the metallic nature of the gold kind of shine through a little bit more. And so we are basically just kind of filling in the lines, and this will be one of the steps that we take before we move on to the wash step, which is a pretty important part, at least with me, weathering metal. I really like the look that comes across as you do it, as you weather. It gives it a nice, like, used effect, especially with someone like a Fire Slayer who does spends a majority of his day actually like fighting, making sure that it looks nice and battle worn. So we based with a mix of P3's Cold Steel and Quicksilver, and we are now coming in with a thinned down Retributor armor. And one of the nice reasons for doing the silver first is we can actually thin down our paints a fair bit while we apply the secondary coat. And this allows us to get more even coverage with it, so we don't have to necessarily worry too much about it being like a little too tacky or thick when these things dry. So it is a really kind of, at least this phase is a little bit on the tedious side, because once again it's almost the same as doing the initial base colors, because you're just kind of coming in and blocking it. And since there's a lot of gold on this model, this step will probably take a little bit longer, but we'll get a little bit more fun when we get to the rune parts. The runes will be an absolute blast because he's got these little like gold tattoos embedded in his skin. And what I'm doing right now, and you probably can't see because his giant beard is blocking it, but I'm painting in the gold bits on his loincloth. So if you guys can't see anything at all or have any questions, feel free to shout at me on the stream. I am watching. And these guys, little Fire Slayers, have a special place in my heart because they're all rowdy and, you know, have their own kind of sense of pride to them, which I think's really kind of cool. Their own like martial code. The nice thing about these models too is that they're on the smaller side, so like they're not the same as painting like a giant troll or anything like that, because painting an entire troll to me is a pretty big, like, and daunting challenge. So doing something that's on the smaller side of things is at least a little easier and a little bit more fun because I get to move through the steps a lot quicker. But as always, if you're here joining me watching this stream, I'd love to know what you're working on currently or what you're excited about working on. I know we sold through our contrast paint bundles super quick, but I can't wait for the next week coming in and I can get my set in when it's wide release. I'll be doing probably some contrast paint demo with Sylvaneth on the week of the 21st. So we will see how that goes. So yeah, nice thing is this part, while it does become a little tedious, just painting a whole bunch of gold, it does allow me to kind of like focus my thoughts on the next step, or talk to you guys in stream or chat, and so on and so forth. I'm a big fan of gold. Like, I like armies with like a lot of gold on them. I like to paint it. It's, to me, a lot more interesting than like steel, especially if you're doing like gold trim or whatever. Like, gold, I feel a lot more free to work in like other colors and like shadows and highlights and all that before, like, I feel like it's not technically gold anymore. Where like steel, if I mix too much of like one more color or another, it immediately stops feeling like steel to me. So, in my mind, like, everything's gold with them, like including their like actual blades of the weapon. It's that gold that they so cover it. So I'll probably paint the actual like axe head a different kind of gold, maybe make it look a little bit more weathered or something or other, but I'll kind of wait to see how the rest of them turns out. Now I'm on the tattoo part, and so I'm going to be coming in and making sure my paint's nice and thin. I know it might sound a little backwards, but I really like thin paint for detail work, because it lets your brush move nice and even over it, and that to me is a big part of making sure you don't like goop it on and obscure detail. So I'm just kind of slowly dragging my brush over the gold runes and doing a couple passes on each one. What this does is reinforces the gold and also helps improve your hand movements for other parts. And since I didn't do a silver undercoat on the skin runes, you definitely want to have like probably 2 coats, just because the actual like sheen of the gold probably won't come through as much as you'd like it to, at least on just one pass. And this also, like, switching over to smaller brush to like do this section gives you a lot of like flexibility of being like, oh hey, I missed this part of the gold doing like the big block base coats, so I'm coming through and double checking my work and making sure that this is up to snuff. And we'll be switching back over to the bigger brush when we get to his hand that I left off in a sub-assembly. And remember, especially with like when you're doing gold, like in this like kind of couple step program, when you do put the wash on, it means it'll kind of cover up a lot of the, let's say, like maybe inconsistencies in the gold, like the first coat of the gold. So if something looks like splotchy or kind of undone, or more than likely like in an area that maybe you can't access as well, the wash will kind of like make that recede into the shadow and hopefully overall improve the look. But so with the Fire Slayers in general, you really want to make sure the runes pop, because if you're doing like a bronzy yellow flesh like I've done on this, which is what the commissioner wanted, the runes themselves are going to be a little bit too close to the skin tone to really kind of stand out on their own. So that's the reason why you really want to push the metallic nature of it and really kind of make sure that you are getting the best gold you can possibly get. And the rune placements on these guys are really interesting to me. Like, this one leg is just filled with runes, but when I get to the other one, I only got a couple. So, like, looks like he definitely favors his right leg. So, yeah. The next part, or at least I mistakenly thought some of these like little brass ornaments in his beard were actually just his beard, which, you know, is nice for me to catch now so I can come back and fix it before I call this bad boy done. But never like be afraid to like come back and fix your mistakes or do.
So John, do you have any more Mompoc items coming out?
Yeah, starting in the month of June, we have the Empire of the Apes coming out for Monpoc, and I'll be excited to see other people paint them. Not necessarily me, because I still hate monkeys.
Oh, not a big fan of them, though?
No, I'm sure the models are actually like really good and powerful. I just, don't want to paint monkeys. Yep. And definitely, like, one of the things I love mounting miniatures, like on these kind of like spray caps, it allows me to like rotate them around a little bit more and see probably details that I wouldn't have caught if I was just painting them from, handling their base. Like that little rune on his underarm. So yeah, the base gold's all done on him, so I'm going to grab his little banner. And this should be nice and easy. I'm going to mix up the gold a little bit more so I can come in and start blocking in some gold. So the paint's going to be a little bit thinner on this one because of the time going by, but it should still apply very evenly over the silver. So yeah, these so the issue with painting this in a sub-assembly is I did not attach his little staff arm to like another base or cork or something like that to hold. So I basically have to hold it from one point, wait for that point to dry, and then move it over to another one. Or like, hold it by the top as opposed to the bottom of the haft. So yeah. And the closer I work to the like blue turquoise trim that I put down before, the more careful I'm going to try to be in my layering. Not that it's a big deal to come back and um, you know, tighten up the edges and all that. It's just one less thing I don't want to. Um, so no, it's not contrast. We actually don't have any like preview contrast coming, and we have sold through our first wave of contrast paints so quickly, and they only went to customers. So us employees were not eligible to get any contrast paints, at least on this wave. But we'll be doing some contrast streams and all of that on the. I think they're supposed to be out the 21st, so we might have enough to get them early for like the Thursday stream. But if not, it'll be the week after. So we'll see. I'm really excited for the contrast paints. I will still paint stuff to the highest quality I possibly can, but it's nice to know that I can like plow through my like troops. Yep, just a regular painting stream right now. Jim, I got into contrast or Sylvaneth specifically because of contrast paints. Because Lord knows I don't have time to paint like another army as completely as I do my lizardmen or trogs. So I'm really looking forward to getting those guys in and start painting them up. Yeah, I'm really excited to kind of see how the bark turns out with them. And then also like thinning down the contrast paints to do like the glowy bits, I think could work pretty well. But we will see. Yeah, so I actually got a chance to use the black contrast, which is why I was showing you earlier the Anvils of Heldenhammer. Like, it's really tempting to kind of like knock out that Stormcast army in that scheme that I really like with the black contrast paints. So yeah, with that, the first part of the staff's painted. I do need to let the gold have a little bit of a dry time before I move on to the next part. And so what I'll do now is probably start working on the wash. The wash that I normally use is going to be Reikland Flesh Shade. Hey, Joe.
So,
Can you get me... Oh, I dropped something. Over from the paint rack. Can you get me Reikland Flesh Shade, but not the gloss version? Good. How are you doing, Rachel?
Pretty good. My arms are feeling better.
That's good.
I want to play video games and draw so bad, but I know if I start, I will go.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. So, going to do some Flesh Shade. Yeah, so I'm painting Fire Slayers. I had a small commission to do a Fire Slayer's character, so I am knocking this out. And so I got some of my wash and my palette, and I do recommend, like, Games Workshop did a really good job of saying, hey, make sure your wash goes in a palette because it 100% helps you getting the right amount of wash on your brush. And with this, we're looking to get enough on there to give it enough coat and definition, but we don't want to start see it pulling, nor do we want to more or less have it unnoticeable. So it's a lot of balance, and it's going to be a lot of pulling around, and you can always kind of wipe off your brush, take in some of the paint, and make sure it gets kind of everywhere that you need it to. Now, I'm once again using a larger paintbrush, and this is going to be on the bigger areas like the helmet and the weapon. And these guys will be dry brushed after the fact, or at least the weapon will be dry brushed pretty heavily. And I'm kind of hesitating, or not hesitating, but I'm holding off on doing the runes on the skin until I get to my smaller brush, just because I want to make sure that I apply that in a precise fashion. You guys might have heard, but I just blew some of the wash through the weapon, and this was to more or less get some of that excess paint off and redistribute it. And so a way of kind of redistributing washes after you've applied them, if you feel like it's too heavy, just basically dry your brush off, come back in, do it that way. And you can keep, wicking away the extra wash, and you'll have several minutes to really kind of get it going. So I'm coming in and washing the belts and the beard ornamentation, and this should really kind of push the gold in the beard to be very close to the beard color itself. So we're going to do a couple like tricks to make it stand out once the wash dries. And once again, if you see something that you've missed before, it's not the end of the world. You can kind of come back. Once again, just follow the steps you did before. Don't try to immediately fill in gold and then throw a wash on it. You will not like the result once the wet gold paint and the wash start mixing and sliding around. Alright, cool. So the wash is set on the big parts, so now we're going to go in with a controlled brush and wash in the runes. And what you're really wanting to do is have a little bit of wash on your brush, enough to where when you go over the runes, it's naturally just going into the cracks and building that kind of definition you need to show someone, hey, this is embedded in his skin. And since we went so light with the skin tone, the wash is a nice deep enough shade to really kind of show off the gold runes. Sorry if I was off camera. So yeah. And once again, double check, make sure you got everything washed. Check the front, check the back. Don't be afraid to go over something multiple times, especially if it's not as washed as you want it to be. Always be evaluating your work, seeing if it's, up to the standard that you are painting at, and never be afraid to go back and change anything. And so a lot of this, anything that you paint now, the idea is you are deepening things, but this is not in any steps the last thing you're going to be doing with these paints or this model. So I'm coming back in with the gold. I'm mixing it back up to paint this bottom of the haft. So we're going to get that in there. So we are just reapplying some gold, making sure it's going to look its most vibrant when we apply the wash over it, and then obviously the subsequent dry brushes. So once this is done, we're going to wait for that to dry before we start washing. But what we're going to do is start doing some gold on another one of the models that we have going here. So once again, we're going to put some gold in the pot. We're going to make sure our brush has some water in it, but is not waterlogged. Wash out the brush, and then we're going to take out our Mr. Squig, and we're going to start applying some gold detail. We want his little eye sockets to be a nice brassy bronze color. And we are just making sure to not destroy any details that we don't want to destroy. We got the ends of these little bells right here, so people can hear this bad boy coming at you. And these guys will get a nice wash as well. So yeah. Since this gold's kind of going over a black, it might take one or two coats, especially since I've thinned it down. But we will take it by year. Till then, I am just going to be blocking in some gold colors. Nice thing about these squigs is they're mostly flesh tone, so I don't have to worry about metallics as much. So this step should be nice and easy. Alright, oh, need to paint the interior of the little bell. Awesome. So, got him down. Now we're going to need one of the Goblin Riders who's got the little moon clan symbol on the back of his hat. And then we got the little ring around his haft. We'll go ahead and we'll make that gold. Will become a nice little like brass thing for us. And, you know, it's one of those things. Evaluate, look around, see if there's options to bring in this gold color, especially if you're batch painting a lot of things. Just look at all the other models on your table and see where you can kind of like bring it in. But yeah, we're really looking forward to getting some contrast paints and doing some streams and such whenever they do arrive. Which might be a bit. Oh, did I not bring in one of those goblins? Gosh darn it. Looks like I don't actually have any gold on the rest of my stuff because I left the rest of it at home. So, once again, we're going to do a little bit of washing on whatever we just did gold-wise. And we'll go from there. Oh, nice. Yeah, so Ryan's showing off some of the clear cast resin that we got. Yeah, so UV resin from Green Stuff World. Yeah, he used blue stuff for the mold, and it came out pretty good. And, like, this clear resin feels great. Like, it's nice and solid. It has a slight, like, bendiness to it, but it's a little bit firmer than regular resin, right? So, yeah, it came out great, and it'll be awesome to see all of these, I guess, souls popping out of whatever you're working on over there, whatever it may be.
That was the test.
Yeah. So yeah, all right, time to come in with a wash on this big, bad staff. And we're gonna have to do the same thing where we wash one portion of it and then move over to the next. So, and it's just something while doing like sub-assemblies and things like that. It's something that happens, and just plan accordingly. And you will be absolutely blown away with the results of like what sub-assembly lets you kind of do for a finished product. Speeds things up, makes things look nicer. I'm not saying it's like the second coming or anything, but to me, if I see the opportunity to make a model look better by, you know, not assembling it as completely, I will probably snap take it, because I have lived through many times of not being able to like properly paint an area of a model I'm working on, and that is very frustrating. I'm also going to use this nice little palette I got from Gigabytes to hold that model as it's drying. So, coming in for the giant cave squig, doing a little wash on his bells. And I'm probably also going to wash the interior of his mouth, because I've yet to do that. And this Reichland Flesh Shade will be perfect for it, so I can get all that detail out there. Now it's important to make sure that you don't have metallic bits in your wash. If you're planning on washing something that's metallic, then do something non-metallic, because that can really ruin your day. And washing the interior of his mouth will definitely take some time to set, because there's a lot. He's mostly mouth. It's like 80% mouth. So, you know, we will just be kind of doing that and then letting it forget about it. Fire and forget washing. And the next part of the squig is really going to be washing a lot of the kind of skin tone, because it does it a disservice to try to build up on yellow, because the more you try to build up on yellow, usually just makes it look either like cream or eggshell as opposed to yellow. So, stuff to think about. And we're probably at a workable time on the Fire Slayer after the Gobbo. So, rinse off brush. We're going to come back to the gold, and we're going to do some touch-ups. We're going to focus the touch-ups on areas that we don't necessarily want to dry brush, but make brighter. So things like the runes. The axe head, I know for a fact I'm going to be dry brushing, and I will try to attempt to dry brush the helmet. So I'm going to try to stay above that, and not try to highlight that way. But a lot of this, like, so when you wash, washes are not metallic, and so when you wash, it'll kind of destroy some of the metallosity of the model underneath, or the paint underneath. So coming back in with a layer builds that highlight back up and definitely reestablishes the metallic nature of it. All right. So yeah, Ryan, can I borrow that sponge? So, going to do some dry brushing, which is loading up your brush with pigment and then rubbing off a majority of it, so that when you rub it across the model like this, it only catches the most raised areas. Might sound weird, but the size of your brush is important. Dry brush with the correct size brush, or if you're like me and don't have access to a smaller dry brush, just YOLO wing it. Oh, do you have a smaller dry brush?
Broad flat.
Ooh. Yeah, this will be great. Thank you. All right, and so with dry brushing, I go with the Retributor armor, wash, back to Retributor armor, and then Liberator gold. And then a final highlight with P3's Quicksilver. Quicksilver is basically the brightest silver I have. So it's basically to just establish the tippy tops of highlights. And Liberator Gold is kind of got that like light gold-esqueness to it. It's getting close to a white gold. And once again, if you find that you are destroying your wash or things are going on a little too heavy, then don't be afraid to like wash it again. But I'm really enjoying what this Liberator Gold does for the top of the model. So yeah. Hey, Kai? Dorian. Oh, Kai. Philip's got a question with you. Can you send Philip a question on Messenger? Or send Philip a message on Messenger, excuse me.
He messaged me individually.
No, he messaged me, but I can't respond to him. All right, and so now we're going to do Quicksilver. And if you guys can see, it's a super bright. Do you not have Messenger on your phone? Can you not message Philip?
Oh, gotcha. I understand now. I understand what you're asking.
All right, so we got Quicksilver on here, and I'm going to focus really heavily on the actual like blade part of the axe to really get it in there, and this should bring it up quite a bit. And also should do like a nice little transition of silver into gold, maybe even giving it a mystic-like effect. We're going to do a little bit on the top of the helmet to really kind of get that in there. And call it a day from there. And now we're going to go back to layering. So first things first, mix back up that Liberator Gold. And we're going to come in and start layering with it. We're going to grab some from the pot, put it in the palette. I'm actually going to go straight for my 00 with this Liberated Gold. And we're going to come back in and we're going to start focusing on those runes again, whether it's on his little pants or in his skin. And what I'm going to be doing after this is coming in with like a little bit of red ink to really kind of push the, or maybe even blazing ink to push the glowiness of these runes. Probably blazing followed by red. So we're coming in, painting the tips of these runes, and I'll be doing like, they have like little gems in set, and I'll probably be painting those gems that nice like teal color that we have in the other bits of the model, and that's basically to make them pop out and be really noticeable. So a lot of this, or the intention of a lot of this, is to draw attention to the fact that this guy has runes embedded in his skin. So we really want to make a lot of the contrast or focus on these like crazy runes he's got. So as soon as I'm done with the silver highlighting, I'll be going in to do that. And this Quicksilver color is just absolutely mind-blowingly bright. And once again, this is just to make everything kind of stand out. The fact that we're going up to like almost a white metallic really does make it stand out quite a bit. And you want to be sparing with it, because if you put too much Quicksilver on a gold, it's just going to go from gold to silver. So be careful how much you use and where you use it. So And I definitely want to put some of this Quicksilver on these like little beard blade attachment things to really kind of make them stand out from his beard. And then same with the little blade attachments down at the end of his loincloth. All right, so from there, we're going to mix up some blazing gold. Or blazing ink, excuse me. I might add a little bit of red into it, just to kind of get that, sorry, I'm talking away from it, just to kind of get that like burning effect going. And I'll need a nice clean brush. And my red. And we'll get these mixed. So, orange ink with red paint will get me kind of a nice little reddish orange, hopefully glow effect. We want these runes to be blazing. And so we're going to start down here. And we are going to trace around the rune. And we're going to be kind of pushing that paint towards the rune without actually getting that color on the actual gold itself, because we want it still to look nice and glowy and golden. So one of the things you'll have to do, and one thing you'll learn, is when you do glow effects like this, you want to always be pushing the paint back towards the center mass of the rune or whatever's glowing. So I am constantly pushing things back towards the center and wicking my brush away as I get further away from the source of the glow, which feathers out my glow effect. Since it glows on the interior as well, just going to do a little bit of a dot like that there. And we're coming in and painting the glow on the neck rune. And if you ever find that your ink's too strong,